Hi guys, welcome back, and today we'll be talking about methods in Java. Last time we talked about an overview of the Java code without really having to understand everything about Java, how to run Java code on your command line or your terminal, and how to declare and initialize variables in Java. If none of these things seem familiar to you guys, then please check out the previous videos. So now let's take a look at this code. This is exercise 1 from the variable slides, and this solution is also available on my GitHub repository. When you first look at this code, you can already see that it's a very long block of code inside the main function. It's really hard to tell what this code is doing unless you actually read the code, and that's actually really bad coding practice. You should be able to see what this function or this code is doing within like 5 seconds without even having to really understand how it works. So the problem with this code is that it's too long, it's hard to tell what this code is doing, which is why it's really important for us to use functions and methods. So we call Java functions to be methods, so anytime I say methods, it means functions. So what functions will do for us is to clean up this code eventually so that we'll be able to read it quickly and that the code looks a little more organized. So methods. Methods are functions in Java, like I said. Methods, you can think of them as specialized workers. For example, if you work in a company like DreamWorks and you're working on a animation movie, then what you might need are specialized workers like artists, voice actors, musicians, and writers. Each one has their own specialized field. And so you can consider an artist to be one of the methods, and voice actor another method, and a musician another method. Some key idea to take away from this is that a method does not do more than one thing. So like a musician would not also be voice acting. So we always want to keep them separate. So here, the whole reason why we want to use methods, as I've mentioned before, is so that we can organize our code. So some of the key ideas is that the name of the method should indicate what the code is actually doing. So this part is where, even without looking at exactly what the function is doing, just looking at the name, you'll be able to tell what the functionality of it is. And what methods help us do is it actually helps us eliminate repetitive coding in our program. We don't want to see 16 different lines of the same exact code, essentially. And we can also take in arguments so that we can avoid hard coding. And hard coding means when you actually put in real numbers, for example, so that it only works for one specific example and does not apply to another problem set. So here I'm trying to illustrate the fact that methods help eliminate repetitive coding. So on the left-hand side here, we have a main function. And then what we see here are what we saw as for loops, so 3 different for loops. And I just wrote little comments to tell you what they're doing. So the goal of this is to print out numbers 1 to 5, print out numbers 0 to 11, and printing out numbers 10 to 12. And as you can already see, they're all doing the same exact thing, but it's taking up a lot of space here. And here in our good example, it only takes 3 lines of code, and you can already see with the general idea of what this code is supposed to do. It print numbers 1 to 5. Print numbers 0 to 11. So I'm literally saying what my comment is saying. And some other good coding practices is that you wanna write as little comments as possible so that the programmers don't have to read the comments to understand what your code is doing. So here I actually counted the lines of code for the bad example, and it takes almost up to 12 lines of code in the main method. And like I said, it's really repetitive to have 3 for loops that essentially do the same thing. It's supposed to print something some number of times, and you need comments to figure out what the code is doing. In the good example, it only takes 3 lines of code, and you can easily see what this code is doing just by the function's name, and overall it's just cleaner than the bad example. So just to mention this, where do you create methods? You would create methods inside the class container, not outside. And that's always going to be the case for majority of the time when you are making Java code. So this is just some outline in order to create a method. Here are 4 different criteria in which you need to meet, and I'm going to be using this main function in order to illustrate that example. So here we say that the method needs to have the following structure in this following order strictly. So you need to have the access level, which is this one right here, and then we have to state whether it's static or not, which is the second field right here, and what does the method return, which is the third one, and then you can name your method, which you must, and you have the option of providing an argument inside the parentheses to pass in a value. And I'll go over every single step throughout these lectures. So access levels. So access levels actually define what a program file can access, essentially, and I'll go over a little more as to what that means. And there are 3 main access levels in Java. There are others, but these are the 3 main ones that is used in data structures. We have public, private, and protected, but we'll be focusing only on public and private. So access levels are not only assigned to methods, it's also assigned to global variables and classes. We won't be going over much about global variables until we get to the classes and objects topic, but just know that with classes, majority of the time, all of them are going to be public classes, and almost always your methods in general are most likely going to be public, with some other special circumstances that give us exceptions. So what does public mean? So public means when you have 2 unrelated files like file1 and file2, and they're both public, they both have public methods, then you can access each other's public methods and global variables, in this case public methods. So here we have file1, and we have defined a public method named print hello world, and according to our name of the method, we know that it's going to print hello world, and that's what this line of code is doing. And in our file2, we have a main method. Inside our main method, we can see that we are calling the print hello world from file1's class, which is defined here. So if I were to run this code now, so I had compiled from file1 of file2, and because the main method lives inside file2, I ran the file2 class file. It'll print hello world perfectly fine. And the reason why that works is because I can use the file1 print hello world method because it is a public method. So in the private case, it's when we still have 2 unrelated files and we have one of the methods to be private, then the other class file cannot use that method. So we have the same exact 2 files, except I only just changed one thing. So in file1, we still have the print hello world method, and in file2 still trying to call the file1's print hello world method inside the